So I've just returned from CitizenCon, Star Citizen's biggest event of the year where they reveal all the big things coming in the future. And boy oh boy is there a lot of exciting things to talk about. Hey guys, I'm Morphologist, and in this video we're going to talk about the biggest things coming to Star Citizen by the end of the year as well as in 2020. Now, due to just how many things are coming, I won't be covering everything in great detail. I think the roadmap can do that well enough. Instead, I want to focus more on the biggest stuff as well as things that aren't currently on the roadmap that have been revealed at CitizenCon. As a bonus, I've also put together here a supercut of the keynote presentation, both the beginning and the end. So if you're not interested in what I'm talking about, you'll at least see something very cool on the screen. So I hope you'll join me for this little journey as we explore what's to come.
So last year, at the end of CitizenCon, I had the sort of road to release roadmap, as of last year, we said, well, we've achieved 7 of those 12 that we'd set out to do, starting with the hangar and going all the way.
So during the last half of the keynote, Chris Roberts, the creator of Star Citizen, went over the roadmap that they've accomplished as well as the roadmap ahead. In it, he talked about some really exciting stuff as well as some stuff that I think most people who don't know about Star Citizen wouldn't find very interesting. So I'll very briefly go over the less interesting bit, which actually does have a huge impact on gameplay, and then finally I'll end with the more interesting bit with some nice visuals. So the less interesting bit is object container streaming, and this is really important because it's what's enabled the game to run really well on most systems. If you guys followed Star Citizen long enough, you'll know back in 2.6, the game didn't run well on pretty much any system. You barely got above 15 FPS, and all they had was a station, not even any planets yet. What this system basically did was separate the level into containers, allowing it to take stuff off your RAM and put new stuff on, freeing up a lot of system memory, and that's basically why the game runs so much better than it did back then. Now, this isn't yet done for servers, and this is a big problem because servers right now are running at about a 5 tick rate, which means that things like FPS Combat feels really clunky. And so once that's integrated in 3.8, the next patch, which is actually coming next month, it's going to feel a lot better, but it's also going to enable bigger, smoother battles, as well as much better looking player interaction. There's not going to be as much janky movement, at least that's the goal of this server-side OCS system. So that's pretty cool, but if you don't play Star Citizen, it doesn't really matter to you. What you probably care about is the big shiny bits. So let's talk about the big shiny bits. So what you have to understand about Star Citizen is that the bulk of the time that's been spent in development has been spent on doing the tools to enable the goal of the game. Building features only works when there's a capability for players to experience them, and because the systems in Star Citizen are so detailed, the current tech that's available in the industry wasn't sufficient to allow them to create tons of star systems and tons of planets at the level of detail that we've now come to expect from this game. And that's why server-side OCS and OCS are so important. Like I said, they sound boring, but they're actually very, very important for the next step, which is more planets and more star systems. Without them, and no server could possibly run the amount of detail that would be in all of these systems at once. There just wouldn't be enough server memory. In fact, they're already maxed out in 3.7 without server-side OCS. And so what 3.8 is actually bringing is the platform, the building blocks to creating more star systems and to creating more planets and moons and areas and details and ships in the game. And that's what we're getting in 3.8. We're getting a whole new planet called Microtech, which is what you're seeing here on the screen. We start off in a new ship as well as in a new shuttlecraft. The Carrack is the big ship I just flew out of, well, they just flew out of, and the shuttlecraft is this little Pisces thing that actually comes with the Carrack, and we're flying down now to the planet of Microtech, which, like I said, would not be possible without this essential building block of server-side OCS. It also means we're going to get finally orbital stations, which are important to the next step for big ships, which are not capable of landing in atmosphere. This is where they're going to be able to dock and offload their cargo, or to add in new crew members who are maybe living on the surface of that moon or planet. And so we start to see that now in this next patch of 3.8. Another exciting but maybe not so obvious feature that's coming in 3.8 is Planet Tech, which is going to change the way that pretty much every moon and planet currently in the game looks. by a pretty big margin. This is not just about the new planet. This is about getting close to the way Earth looks from orbit. It's about making the surfaces realistic and believable through very advanced and forward-thinking systems that take into account humidity, air temperature, rainfall, snowfall in this case, that add into the formulas, the algorithms that generate these procedurally generated planet surfaces that are partially guided actually by the hands of artists. We were told at this CitizenCon event that they've redone the entire system with this new tech, essentially recreating every single planet's surface. That means that they've done every planet over in one patch, which means they've become very efficient at doing this and that they can move on to the next system, which we're going to get into at the end of this video. But next I want to talk about something that I just alluded to earlier about planet tech. Remember I said that they did something with planet humidity and temperature, right? Well, there's a reason for that other than just generating cool-looking terrain. That's right, I'm talking about weather, and we've got our first look at it at CitizenCon this year. If you were looking at the windscreen there's actually rain droplets appearing on the windscreen. Let's jump ahead to the latter part of this presentation.
Get into persistent curves. There's a whole sort of different levels of punch, left, right, block, left, right. It's all actually.
Unlike the sandstorm we saw in an earlier CitizenCon, this event is actually built into the game. This is not some scripted, made by SFX artist sort of storm. This is integrated, and you can see how many systems now are coming into play. Stuff like your character being subjected to this event makes them very cold. That whatever you're wearing is going to affect how quickly you nearly succumb to, say, hypothermia, which they discussed in this actual presentation. You can see actually your health in the lower left-hand corner going down as you get colder and colder. And because microtech can get so cold, the time it takes to die in this particular climate is actually pretty fast, which means there's going to be a need for things like much more advanced exploration suits that are more suited to extreme environments, which is also something that they've revealed here at this event. Now, it's also worth noting that this suit is one of the gifts that you get from the CitizenCon package if you bought the goodies pack, which I think really strongly alludes to this probably being, if not in 3.8, at least in the next patch. Now, this isn't the full weather system as they've discussed. This is purely only snow at the moment, and they have plans to add in things like rain and sandstorms, as was shown in an earlier presentation at an earlier CitizenCon. And while this might seem like a cool looking feature and not necessarily hugely impactful on gameplay, it actually will come into play for a number of systems. One of those systems is going to be prison gameplay.
Launch complete.
Early 2020, next year, Q1, we're getting patch 3.9, which is adding in prison gameplay. It's another layer to the law system wherein if you get caught or killed by security or bounty hunters, you get thrown in a prison for a duration that is set by the severity of the offenses that you've committed. As a prisoner, you won't just be sitting in a cell though. You are an indentured servant that has the ability to get out earlier through good behavior by either mining or getting rid of troublesome prisoners who have caused uprising. You'll be able to take out bounties on other players or other NPCs who are in prison who've become a problem for the company. Now, if you earn enough credits, you can reduce or halve or even quarter the sentence that you were given. However, you also have the ability to immediately escape if you know the escape route. That's not going to be easy though, and even if you do escape, you're going to need to arrange some sort of transport out of there because it's on Aberdeen, which is the moon I'm flying around on right now. Right now it's not much of a hostile environment because we don't have those effects yet in the game, but as I've said, they're adding in weather, and so with just your prison suit, you're going to die very quickly if you get to the surface, as it is so incredibly hot on the surface of Aberdeen. If you die without being rescued or are further unable to go to a security outpost to reduce your crime stat through one of the security chips, which is already in the current version of Star Citizen, you get dragged back into the prison with a doubled sentence or more. So it's going to have a pretty high risk, and you're going to have to make sure that you've got an arranged escort out of there if you're going to try the route of escape. which adds another layer of fun, I think, to prison gameplay, especially for people who are dead set on becoming pirates. This is really good news for Star Citizen because it brings us closer to the MMO that we really desire, at least personally that I want to see, wherein instead of artificial restrictions being placed on the player from doing bad things, there are huge detriments or incentives not to do bad stuff, because if you do and you get caught, it can be pretty troublesome. This brings us one step closer to the final version of the law system wherein they completely remove safe zones. That means conceivably, if you're able to sneak a weapon past security on Area 18, that you could pull one out and assassinate somebody. Now, of course, you'll immediately get killed because there's so much security in a high-sec planet like that, but it will be possible, making for much more interesting gameplay, and for things like bounty hunting players in cities. Now, before I wrap up with the single biggest surprise feature of 2020, let's go over just a few more of the little ones in between that we're going to be getting, at least in this next patch, as well as in 3.9 and 4.0 next year. So in 3.8, we're going to be getting Fps Close Combat. That's unarmed combat with knives and with no weapon whatsoever, so you can take people down, say in cities, non-lethally, which is going to add a very interesting dynamic to bounty hunting without having to kill your opponent. We're also getting a rescue hijacked 890 jump mission, which means you can go into an 890 jump that's been filled with pirates and kill them in close quarter ship combat and conceivably take the ship if you wanted to become a pirate yourself. A new version of the law system where you're going to get fined in addition to being punished through an increased security stat. And better AI for ship pathfinding, which is something that we sorely need. We're also going to be getting in 3.9 prison gameplay, as I've talked about, more moons for New Babbage, the microtech system, better FPS combat from AI, as well as a better looking economy through economy display terminals and an accounting app in our Mobiglass, which will enable traders to actually make money more efficiently and have a much better, more rounded economy overall. Finally, in 4.0, the big one, we're getting Crusader, which is the gas giant, and the Orison landing zone, which means that we're going to be having gas cloud tech done in Star Citizen fully. We're also going to be getting atmospheric AI combat, which is going to be really fun to see. So they're going to be able to chase you into the atmosphere of planets, making for a much more different experience in space combat, as well as ship-to-station docking. That means conceivably we're getting big ships that can't land on planet surfaces, like the Idris, the Javelin, the Hull series, which aren't on the PU roadmap, but are actually supposed to be done already on the Squadron 42 roadmap. And then a lot of people are going to be happy in 4.0 because we're getting two more professions, Salvage version 1, where you can salvage broken or destroyed ships, and Npc Healing, where you can heal NPCs or NPCs can heal you, as well as heal other players, making a lot of medics in the game very, very happy. This, like is mostly the case with roadmap, and you guys really should know this, usually means that we're getting a lot more features than are listed here. We're probably getting a lot more stuff added in with health, things like internal injuries, broken legs. Will probably no longer be able to be healed just by using one of those health pens. You'll have to go to either a medic or to a health station on a station or planet, or on one of the big ships like the 890 Jump, Kraken, Idris that actually have those medical facilities to be able to handle more serious injuries. Finally, we're getting an Mpc Scheduler, which doesn't sound really that exciting, but what it really means is that they're adding in automatically generated NPCs based off the system they discussed this year at CitizenCon with the economy, meaning that these NPCs are going to have active roles in the environment, active roles in the economy, and actually be doing things. And there's going to be many, many NPCs in every system filling out the majority of the universe, making the player base a very small percentage of the population overall. And this overall will complete the Stanton system, the first system in Star Citizen that has a bit of a sampling of every other system in the game through gas giants, moons, city planets, heavily populated and lightly populated planets. And that leads us into the best feature of 2020. I hate to toot my own horn, and I guess I'm going to do that right now. I called it. It looks like we're getting jump points in 2020, and they showed it off at CitizenCon this year. If you guys don't know, jump points are the way that you get from system to system, which means we're finally getting an expanded universe, and the MMO becomes real. Well, real-ish. There are a couple of other really core important features that also need to come in 2020. Chris highlighted these in his keynote. That's persistence, first and soft persistence with keeping your ship and inventory between patches, and then finally hard persistence where the server just remembers where everything is all the time regardless of the server being up or down. Then we're going to be getting server meshing, which is going to enable huge player counts per server. The end goal looking to be one server to rule them all. This happening in parallel to developing all the other systems to make it much more rich and enjoyable, like better professions, more missions, more varied ships to do varied tasks, will make Star Citizen by the end of 2020 an incredibly fun experience. One of the cool things I have to note before concluding here is that the jump points themselves are going to be a minigame. Chris talked about this a long time ago if you've been following the project. It's not just going to be as simple as jumping from A to B like say EVE Online. If you're going through a small, relatively unused wormhole like this, a jump point to get to another system, you're going to have to navigate pretty skillfully to avoid falling out into the middle of nowhere, which is essentially a death sentence, making travel an event rather than a monotonous necessity. Well, let's conclude here with some of my final thoughts. If you guys have been following the project like I have, you may have noticed a trend in the way that they present information about future features in Star Citizen. They've begun giving us a lot more details about things that they are changing or adding or removing from the roadmap, as well as being a lot more coy about talking about future planned features. And I think this comes down to a self-awareness of overpromising and under-delivering, which has created a lot of bad press surrounding the project. That has made a CitizenCon that may not be quite as shiny as it was last year, but one that I think is a bit more honest in presenting what they believe that they can get done in the next year. And so I can say personally, I'm a bit more confident in their promises for 2020. But what do you guys think? What are you most looking forward to in the coming year? Let me know down in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for joining me on this journey. I've been Morphologist, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, so we are now in the Pedro system, and we streamed out Stanton as we were traveling, and streamed in Pedro. So the route to the ruined station sample.